Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is the EarthWorks podcast, and I am very excited to finally have gotten on screen here our friend Tony Leonard, who's the director of grounds for the Philadelphia Eagles, this is being recorded on December 22nd, and I will congratulate you on a really great game last night. And I have to say, that field looked as good as I've ever seen a field at that time of year in December. I mean, it was unbelievable. It looked great on TV. Did it look as good live?
It did. I mean, it was something we've never done before. First and foremost, I just want to thank you for having me and happy holidays. Yeah, it was a good win last night. It was odd playing on Tuesday.
Really.
It's not my first Tuesday night game. It's with the Eagles. We did have one before, I believe in 2010 when we had a blizzard Sunday night, and they moved our game against Minnesota Vikings to Tuesday night. But no, the field did well. But it was the first time where we brought Bermuda grass in, overseeded with ryegrass, this late into the year. Usually
when did you bring that in? You brought that field in a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we brought that in. We sodded about 3 weeks ago.
You did the whole field this time, though, didn't you?
Yeah, it was December 2nd and 3rd. So Tuckahoe Sod Farms, they were growing the sod for us on plastic. Tahoma Bermuda grass, that was overseeded. And
that's not doable in Philadelphia. You know that, right? You can't grow.
It's not doable in Philadelphia.
I've heard that so many times.
Unless you have 28 miles of heat pipe underneath the
right,
field,
exactly,
growth covers, and an awesome staff that assists with all the maintenance that goes along with it. But yeah, I mean, look, it was something we've been trying to do. I think the footing from a player safety and performance standpoint it's a better performing field surface than what we used to use was Kentucky bluegrass at this time of year. So I thought the field looked well. I thought it played well. We had some misty weather, especially in the first half, which causes that top eighth of an inch to just kind of stay wet. But I thought all in all, I thought it played pretty well, and we got the win. So
yeah, and you got the win. Is there anything you guys do to buffer that misty weather? I mean, there's really nothing you guys can do as a field crew, is there?
No, there's nothing. It's really hard. I mean, I think keeping the surface as dry as possible going into the game.
Yeah.
This time of year, it's difficult because we are using growth blankets, which creates a lot of moisture in that upper inch. We have a heat system underneath, which I just talked about, that pushes moisture up to the surface as well. So it's really tricky trying to find that fine line of what's, of that moisture level, and when you need to pull the blankets and maybe knock the heat back a little bit and we use our soil moisture meters quite a bit to help us with that.
Were guys using special shoes last night?
No,
I mean, it didn't.
Players.
Yeah, I watched most of the game. It didn't look like anybody was really slipping or falling.
We had like one or two, but I mean, it's guys. I mean, it's not, especially this time of year. Look, we're in the Mid-Atlantic or the North,
and it's December.
You want to call it? It's December. It's football. I mean, this is what it is. So it's not uncommon for guys to change cleats, whether it's Washington, Baltimore, here, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, throughout the course of the game. And I think it's important for them, it's, to get the best footing. I don't care whatever cleat they want to wear. It makes no difference to me as long as they perform well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you and I go way back, and I love the story of Tony Leonard. I mean, it's one of my favorite stories. I tell it often. I hope you don't mind, but I think it's such a great story in our industry. I mean, you and I met back in probably the late 90s. And you were working, as I describe it, and you'll do a much more eloquent job than this, but you were working on what I call a dirt field on a parking lot. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I met you, and you and I got to meet at your practice facility, which was literally dirt brought onto the parking lot at the old Vet Stadium, and you guys had a bubble. I mean, at that time, and I think you told me this, you probably had the absolute worst practice facility in the NFL, and you quickly moved to probably the best practice facility in the NFL. Talk about how you got to the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with that conversation first. And I want to really explore this dirt field concept. But how did you get there?
So when I was in college, I graduated Penn State in 1997.
Congratulations.
Prior to graduating, I did an internship with the Baltimore Ravens. And
under who?
Under Vince Paterozzi. So Vince Paterozzi was the head groundskeeper at Memorial Stadium. Vince came from Cleveland when Cleveland moved the Browns to Baltimore. He came along with them, and they were at Memorial Stadium, and Vince did a great job. He did a great job with the stadium there, and they were building a new stadium as well.
So you started at Memorial Stadium? I didn't even know that.
So we were like, one of my first days was ripping out the irrigation systems, and it was the heat systems, and it was odd because growing up, I grew up in Hanover, PA, which we were close to Baltimore. I mean, I grew up as an Orioles fan, so I've spent games there watching, like in that stadium. And so
one of my favorite stadiums, I actually, I tell the story, I think I told it recently on a podcast, but I was at the 69 World Series at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah.
And they were way over, they were so highly expected to win. And then the Mets came in and we beat Seaver in the first game, and then they lost the second game. No big deal. I had tickets for 6 and 7, and then never came home.
No, it was
great stadium.
It was at the time, like when they were moving out, it was, it wasn't made for football. No, it was obviously a baseball stadium, but I think they did some USFL games there, maybe back in the day. But, they were moving to the new stadium, but Vince had a good reputation. And at the time, the Eagles, I did not know like any of this was going on, but Vince, he was helping, he was helping them with their practice facility situation. The city maintained it, these 2 grass fields. So I think these 2 grass fields in the vet were built in the 80s. I think there was a dredging project going on in the Delaware River.
Oh, so not only did you get fields on cement, you got crappy soil to put on cement.
Yeah, so it's like it's sand, and everything drains in sand, right?
Oh,
so they stripped the asphalt off. They got down to about 10 or 12 inches. On top of the stone, they laid a geotech fabric and then put the sand on top of that. Oh. So what happened was, over the years, the heavy metals in the sand leached into the felt fabric and basically sealed off any kind of drainage whatsoever. So Vince helped them out with this project to get these fields up to speed with the rest of the NFL. And so he was working with a company called S.W. Franks. So S.W. Franks was out of Cleveland. They came in. Basically, we had to bulldoze off part of the field, the sand, and then get the fabric, pull the fabric out, and then put the sand back. And that's essentially that's what we had to do. We had to get the fabric and we only did one field. There was 2 fields there. We did one field. The other field, they tried to poke holes through with a vertidrain. So that's what they had the money for. The Eagles organization knew they were going to get a new practice facility, so they didn't want to put a whole lot of effort into this. But, they at least wanted to get one field done properly. So, while I was interning in Baltimore, he said, "Hey, I have this other opportunity if you want to go up to Philadelphia." And at the time, my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, Lynn, she was from Philadelphia. So I was like, sure, I'll go up to Philadelphia and work. It's like a win-win, right?
Win-win.
So I go up there and we work.
The job and the girl, perfect.
Exactly. So I was working for S.W. Franks there too. And I spent the summer here rebuilding these fields, which was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
We got them sodded. I went back to Penn State. There was no such thing as online, education. Exactly. They were trying to get me to, take classes here locally. And I'm like, this is only, it was my last semester of school. I had to take certain classes that I couldn't take online. So went back to Penn State, and then graduated, went back to the Ravens, and then nothing really happened for a little while. And then I went to go work for Hummer Sports Turf over in Lancaster. So I worked with them. And then after about 6 months, the phone rings again, like, "Hey, we're having problems in Philly again. Can you come out?" I'm like, it I was excited. I enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed working, you know, in the NFL, and had a great experience at Hummer. And it was just like, this is what I wanted to do. So moved back out to Philadelphia, and we kind of kicked the can down the road for about a year or so, got the fields back where they needed to be. And then things got off the ground over at NovaCare, where we started building the fields. And then in 2000, we built the fields there. And then in 2001 is when we officially opened up the doors for business. And
when did you become an Eagles employee?
it was in 2000.
So you got back into this not as an employee, but as a consultant with the group in Lancaster?
Yeah, well, it was Vince. It was through Vince's company.
Okay.
And then, so I was, I mean, I worked out of a little trailer parked on the side. And then I ended up meeting up with another guy. So the Eagles wanted to, you know, they wanted to change directions a little bit with like who they had maintaining the field. So there was another gentleman in the area named Brian Poole, who was at the University of Delaware at the time. And Brian and we've known each other for a little bit, and he wanted to start his own business. So I said, look, Brian, here's the deal. I can help get you off the ground with your business, but I have to be your first hire. And, you know, he was like, really? I said, yeah. I said, this is kind of the
how it works.
Here. He goes, absolutely. He goes, I would love to be able to do it. And, you know, he bought the mower, and we made a couple improvements to the conditions there. But he was there for about 1.5 years to 2 years with me. And, you know, we got the fields where they needed to be. And, look, it was, I don't want to say it was probably one of the worst practice facilities, but
it was.
The players had to get in their cars. They had to dress in their locker room, go get in their car, drive to practice.
From the stadium.
Yeah. Practice, sweaty, dirty, whatever. Hop back in their cars with shoulder pads on, helmets, cleats, everything, and drive back into the locker room or drive back to the vet, park their car, go get showered.
I had no idea.
It was the bubble, you know, the infamous.
I remember.
Bubble that was there.
I mean, when I met you, I've told this story many times. When I met you, I was so amazed at what you were able to accomplish, because you literally had these 2 dirt fields on the parking lot, and then next to that was the bubble. And I remember you walking me into the bubble, and it was truly disgusting. I mean, it stank. It was hot and gooey, and you know, this was probably in, you know, it must have been during the season, but you know, you managed some of the most difficult facility. And I remember you telling me the story of how hard it was for the franchise to recruit people, because you got a dirt field on the parking lot and this bubble. And I never heard the having to drive back and forth, but you guys went from the worst to the best when NovaCare was opened in 2000. I mean, you tell me, but I assume it was probably the elite facility in the NFL at that point.
It was. I mean, look, and all credit, you know, to our owner, Jeffrey Lurie. I mean, when he bought the team, that was his goal. Like, he knew we had to upgrade the practice facilities. He knew we had to upgrade the stadium. I mean, that was his mission from day one. And,
for nothing, you know, just to recruit people for no other reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, and there's so many, you know, you walk in, you're like, hey, we're going to build a stadium. Well, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I mean, not only with, you know, the city and, you know, the neighbors and the state and, you know, with the NFL itself, there was all these things that had to come together, and it takes a long time for all that to happen. And of course, it takes a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
But that was his mission, and it was hard. Yeah, it was hard to, you know, our scouts did the best job they can do to walk a player, you know, through the parking lot of the vet and say, here, these are our fields.
Yeah, come to a bubble in a dirt field on a parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, but like,
and drive over to your locker when you're done. Great.
We made the most of it.
Sounds enticing. I'll come.
So the bubble, yeah, I mean, it was this unconditioned space. The only airflow was just the airflow to keep the thing inflated.
Oh, there was airflow? I didn't even notice that.
Very, very low light. Yeah, you had to walk through 2 sets of doors because
I remember that.
Opened it up and it would collapse, and I think it did collapse once or twice due to heavy snowfalls. But you know, again, the city did like this. It was built whenever it was built. I'm sure it was a Band-Aid, to get them through a certain period of time.
How long was that the facility? I mean, what did they have?
I think it was in the 80s. I think in the 80s is when that was built. Because I know Buddy.
What was there
Ryan
before
still
that?
around. Nothing.
You have-
parking lot.
No, I mean, no. How did they practice? On the stadium field at the vet?
No, they used to use, well, it would be the stadium field, and I think they practiced over at JFK.
Okay.
Municipal Stadium. So just talking with guys like Harold Carmichael, he would tell stories about practicing over there as well on that field. So it was the conditions weren't great. I mean, let's
what was the state of practice facilities in 2000 when you guys built NovaCare? Were there other facilities like that? I mean, were you copying, or not copying, but were you kind of building up to the level of the NFL? Or was a lot of the NFL still at a pretty low level in 2000?
So Pittsburgh, they moved into a new facility
about the same time.
About the same time.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Falcons, which we looked at their facility, they just opened up a new one outside of Atlanta. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that were up and running. I know when we built ours, Detroit Lions, they stopped down when we played them way back when, and they toured through our facility as well. So, New England, I think when they built their stadium, they looked at
that's all after you.
Yeah. So it was again, it was a goal, and it was one of the best. It was like one of the best ones when we built it, and I still think it's still right up there. When you look back and look and see where we were in 2000 from a technology standpoint to see where we are now. I mean, we didn't have social media, and now we have a big department dedicated to social media. I mean, our Dave Spadaro used to come out with a newspaper called Eagles Insider, I believe. And now
there were newspapers back then?
Yeah, we had, so that was your fan newspaper, and that would get printed once a week. And, now here we are with, stories galore every day out on the internet. And so when you look at that group has expanded a lot. Our football operations has expanded a lot. We are so much more now analytically driven, and this is in sports in general. So, that's a whole nother department. So, are we busting out at the seams over there? Sure we are, but it's still a great facility. We have 3.5 fields over there that are, they give us all the resources. Again, this goes back to our owner and our upper management and the football operations staff. Is they give us the equipment, the tools to succeed.
So talk about NovaCare. I mean, it's a beautiful facility. You got great fields. Talk about what are the grasses? What was it? How was it constructed? I mean, give us an insight as to the whole beginning and today's of NovaCare.
Yeah, so NovaCare, I mean, just to go back a little bit in history, but it sits on the property of the Naval Hospital. So there was, I think, an 11-story hospital that sat on that piece of land adjacent to NovaCare, but the whole South Philly and that whole area was all part of that Naval Hospital. So where the fields were was a park, and then there was different buildings, and there was a dog kennel for the police dogs that was behind the indoor. Yeah, so it was, but it was abandoned. It was abandoned, I think, in the 80s. So it became like overgrown, and I think the city was looking to do something with that land. And when we were looking for a new facility, it was just a good fit. So then the design team, the architects, they start laying things out, and we built these fields. We excavated, out about 2 feet, and then we started with the drainage and, typical 10/4 profile. And it was, we had an 85-15% soil was our root zone. And at the time, there was a lot of 90-10 mixes with 10% peat being put into football fields, especially.
Golf course profiles.
Those fields, and they were building them like golf course greens, which, there's 2 different needs there from a performance standpoint. Man, I think what they were seeing is that these 90-10 fields around colleges and in the NFL, they were failing. Not so much at the beginning of the year, but as you got into the middle of the season,
into the winter,
there was just no stability there whatsoever. And not saying that, adding 15% of soil helps, but it just helps.
How can it not help? I mean, you're providing, some level of turgidity to the soil.
Yeah, and drainage is obviously important. Porosity is important. We all know that. But unlike baseball, where, you know, that getting that game in, like as much drainage as they can get is that's huge. For us, if it's raining out, chances are we're going to go inside. So for that practice, it wasn't as big of a deal that we have the drainage like a baseball field would have, or like a golf course would have. We were more concerned with the stability and how that field performed throughout. So, you know, that's kind of the direction we went with that. It was built, we built 2.5 of the fields were built flat so we could rotate. So there were some objections to that when we first did it. But I'm glad we did, because, you know, fast forward from when we built it with Andy Reid and knowing his practice schedules, and they went to Lehigh, and you know all about Lehigh, and we can talk about that a little bit. But, you know, then we got into, you know, Andy was very successful here, had a great run for us.
Yes, he did.
And we get to Chip Kelly, and then Chip Kelly's like, listen, we're not going to travel anymore for training camp. We're going to come back and do training camp here in Philadelphia. I'm like, fine. So having the ability to rotate fields east and west or north and south was huge. We didn't do it. We may have done it once or twice with Andy, but with Chip, it was a necessity for us to rotate those fields during training camp and then rotate them back.
Man, that must have changed your life a lot when they decided to stay in-house for training camp. So you're working constantly to keep that thing going.
Yeah, but it was, you know, like going up to Lehigh, it was nice. It was a good break for the fields, but you know, you're trying to maintain something there over a 3 or 4 month period and then give it back.
Oh, so you were actually maintaining the fields up at Lehigh.
We were assisting. I mean, at the time it was Brickman.
Yeah.
You know, those guys did a great job. The university was outstanding. I mean, they were a great group of people to work with. However, like our needs were different than their needs. And, you know, we were there for 2.5 weeks at most. And it was like, okay, how much time and effort, how many inputs do we want to put into this field to get it ready? And of course, you know, look, we have a lot of money on the fields at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So we would do, you know, the fungicides, and we would assist with that. And, you know, it was good. It was a lot of POA. They used overhead irrigation cannons to water the fields, but they had 3 fields. It was a great experience for the fans. It was, you know, I think it was good for the players, but philosophically, Chip wanted to come back. You know, he wanted to keep it in-house. To move everything from a technology standpoint up to Lehigh, it would have been a lot. It would have been a lot to move everything up there. Yeah. And, you know, he was very forward thinking with that stuff, and, you know, the whole sleeping and, you know, just the player health overall. Like he just wanted.
And you had your workout facility. I mean, you were home. You're comfortable. Did you have?
So
when you do training at NovaCare, do you have fans come in?
Yeah, we do. We have.
Okay. I remember going to Lehigh.
So we have not like we did at Lehigh.
Yeah,
so
I remember Lehigh. I went there a couple of times and watched you guys. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, so we have corporate partnerships. So we let in some of we're allowed up to 500 people per day.
Oh wow! Around the fields.
Around the fields, yeah. So we set up tents, and our corporate folks and our, you know, the event staff, they do an awesome job with that, and the entertainment of that. But so we have like our corporate partnerships and premium areas. We bring in some season ticket holders. We bring in other guests during the training camp period. So there's maybe 15 days or so where we can bring people in. And then of course we do a couple of open practices at the stadium. For the public who can't come in to NovaCare and see practice, we come to the stadium. We offer that out there as well, and
that's pretty.
They're usually pretty successful too.
So let's talk NovaCare Field. You've got 3 fields side by side. Is the soil mix exactly the same from left to right?
No. So
the one field is different.
Back to that. So we have 2.5 fields that are like that 10 inches over 4 inches of peat gravel, and then we had an area that is now field 3 that was contaminated. So it's contaminated soil. So everybody's like, what the heck are we going to do with this? So back in 2000 or 99, I should say, when I worked at Hummer Sports Turf, and even when I was a student at Penn State, I assisted Dr. McNitt up there with a project. It was Hummer turf tiles. So it was a turf tile that was 7 foot by 7 foot, roughly 2 inches thick. And you will know this very well up at the Meadowlands. They had a similar grass system where it was a tile system, but theirs was 4 foot by 4 foot, about 10 inches thick.
Yeah.
So the whole idea was you can rotate these tiles around, and for end zones, you can move them around. If you have wear areas, they'll never root in. So we worked with Hummer, and we did this third practice field. We installed asphalt. We were able to stay above the contaminated area. We installed asphalt, and then we laid the grass tiles on top of the asphalt. So we had a 2-inch profile field. And what we did was, it was kind of a research project for the stadium to see if we wanted to go this route when we built the stadium, if this was going to be a viable option.
Yeah.
Knowing we were going to have Army Navy, knowing we were going to do concerts, knowing we were going to have soccer and temple football. So we went through all these things, and we looked at it, and it sounds good in theory, and I think that's what they found out at the Meadowlands, and I believe Houston incorporated the same technology.
Or Arizona. Was it Arizona?
Well, it was Houston did it at their stadium, and then they got rid of it. Now they're all synthetic.
Right.
That has a retractable field.
That was all retractable. That's right.
Yeah, that moves in and out. So these tiles, I mean, look, when you're slamming 4 foot by 4 foot, 10-inch deep grass tiles around weekly, you start to lose some of that material on the sides, and then that's where it became an issue with the.
Yeah, I mean, I've always contended, I mean, having seen that Giants stadium, I always contended that the idea was great because you could move it in and out. I just honestly think that they just didn't put a very good mix together, and the mix was what failed more than than the tile itself. They
probably needed another field.
Yeah,
like another system that they can move around.
Yeah.
So you really
at least a half a field that they could move pieces in and out. But the mix was not very good. It was a lot of sand. There wasn't a lot of real sustainability to it. There wasn't a whole lot of mineral or organic in it. And I remember looking at that very closely a number of times and thinking, wow, I think this could be really good if you just put a good mix together. But who am I? Right.
And that's going back to that's why we went with the 85-15. And when we built the stadium, and then when we built the stadium, we kind of used that same model to build that root zone over there too. But over at NovaCare, so now we have this 2-inch profile. We have an overhead irrigation cannon watering that one field, and then the other fields have the in-ground systems in it. So when we sodded it, we sodded with Kentucky bluegrass. There was no cold tolerant Bermudas that were moving this far north. So again, fast forward through the Andy Reid days, and then Andy goes to Kansas City. Chip comes in and he talks about this training camp. So at the same time, we were looking at the stadium. We've had Bermuda grass in there since 2008. Again, we weren't ready to pull that trigger yet at the practice facility, but at the time, this is when Latitude and Northbridge came about.
Just coming in, yeah.
Yeah, so Patriot and Riviera, that was already out. And then we were looking at the Northbridge and the Latitude 36. And then we sodded our practice fields with Latitude 36. And then that was the start of Bermuda grass over at NovaCare.
But it's always been overseeded, obviously.
So we overseeded in the winter. Now we don't overseed anymore.
You're not doing it at all anymore.
So we moved over to Northbridge. So we moved over to Northbridge, and now we're at Northbridge, and we have Tahoma on one field, and Northbridge on the 2.5 fields, but we do not overseed. Surprisingly, the coaches like it because the film is more vivid, apparently.
Oh, is that right?
On a dormant Bermuda grass field, the film
it's more vivid.
It's more vivid, so they can see the players clear and they stand out more. So.
I have a couple great stories that I stole from you on NovaCare, and one of them was you had told me once many years ago that you were struggling to get them to rotate positions on the field, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with this, but you came up with the brilliant idea of moving the cameras because they wouldn't practice under the cameras, and it would allow you to move them around the grass so they wouldn't wear and tear the same spot every single day.
I don't think people realize this. I mean, this, again, this kind of goes back back when we started, where we used to use these two big cherry pickers. I mean, they were these high reach lifts. We had two of them. They were extremely heavy. We had to roll, and like we had to get a pitchfork and just to pick the ruts up a little bit and tamp them down and roll them down. But everything happens underneath that camera. Like no matter what they do, that dictated where they went for practice. So yeah, we just started moving the cameras around, and
I think that's brilliant.
And it's like now it's crazy now. Again, technology where every position group now has their own camera, and now you have cameras, GoPros on a stick that they raise up 15, 20, or 30 feet high.
You're not getting the benefit like you used to.
We can get them to move around a little bit, but because they can. But before, like these big camera lifts, they were stationary, and to move them, it was like, to move them, it was so much time to be able to move these things. So yeah, they were stuck. So we would do the best we could to keep moving these camera lifts around, and that would move the team around.
Yeah. My other favorite story, and I apologize for this being a bit self-serving or self-detrimental, but was one time when you applied some 545 on the field, and it must have gotten drawn into the facility at some point. I guess the air conditioning was on or something. Do you remember that? And I think Mrs. Lori,
it was our grand opening.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry.
of the facility.
And you're still talking to me, which is amazing. It's shocking.
So we were putting out a nice spring application of some 545, and back in the early days, and it would pulverize a little bit and become a little dusty. Well, it got sucked into the HVAC units, and before they knew it, they were able to catch it quick enough where they were able to shut down the HVAC system. And once we were done,
I didn't know that. But Mrs. Lori was in the building?
Very quick. It was a very quick application. We were able to get the material out within a short time frame, and everything was fine. But it was caused a little concern inside the building, but it was,
I can imagine,
remediated. Open up the windows.
What's the day-to-day work for you guys while you're at NovaCare before season? I mean, and how many guys do you have on crew, first and foremost? I mean, you have a nice facility there for your guys. How many guys do you have now?
So right now it's myself and 5 others.
Full time?
Yeah, full time.
You bring on seasonal people during the.
So we have 2 interns right now.
Oh, good.
The guys are phenomenal. I mean, we have guy Eddie Harbaugh. He does our practice field. He takes the lead over there. Brandon Bausma is over here at the stadium. Chris Weaver, he's in charge of all the landscaping at both facilities.
Oh, good.
And then we have Mark Corcoran and another gentleman we just hired, Josh Riley. They serve as our mechanics and jack of all trades, and they get pulled in every different direction where we need help painting or leaf cleanup at this time of year. So everybody chips in. I couldn't ask for a better staff. I think it all happens, and I think anybody on a golf course or any facility knows that they're only as successful as the people.
Is that a typical size crew for a?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, you'll get
couple here, couple there.
A little different. Yeah, some a little under, some above. I know the guys in Pittsburgh, we run similar. In Cleveland, they run similar. You'll get some facilities where they have a dedicated staff for the stadium and a dedicated staff for the practice facility. But we're close enough. I like being able to, maintain both, and then that way we can kind of keep things similar, and we can share equipment. We're still close enough where we can drive equipment back and forth if we need to, and so we can utilize those resources. But no, it's a great group of guys. We have fun together. We try to pull in a couple interns every year, and our game day staff, we expand that up to about 12 for game day. So we bring in an additional 5 to 6 guys.
Just volunteers, or are these?
No, they're all paid. So some have been with us since we opened the stadium.
Oh, really? So they just want to hang out and
so it's
poke divots
nice.
Or whatever they do.
Yeah. So they come in, they help paint the field on Saturdays, and then they work Sunday. Help set the field up, get everything ready for the game, and then post game we do our cleanup, divots, and whatnot.
Let's stay at the stadium or the NovaCare Center for a second. What's the day-to-day there? I mean, what's a typical day for you guys when you're focused at NovaCare?
So we come in and we start our day. It's I would say like 7 o'clock, 7:30. The first thing is we go up, we mow fields if we're gonna spray. Again, it depends on the time of year. So over the years, with the NFLPA and the NFL, the collective bargaining agreements, everybody gets on the spring workouts, why aren't they tackling and things like that.
Right.
They start using the field starting in April.
Oh, really?
So right now it's a three-phase off-season training activities. So what they do is there's a phase 1, which is more stretching. There's phase 2, which they get to work with individual position coaches, and then phase 3, which they're team activities where they can work together. So they go from April through June, and then there's a 6-week break until training camp starts. So a lot of our day-to-day is, check the fields, mow, spray if we have the time to spray before the players come out. Then get all that done, painting. Right now we're in a schedule, like during the season, Mondays and Tuesdays are our days to put out fertilizer, paint, spray, get all that work done. And then we mow every day, even this time of year.
Really?
Even though it's dormant, it helps clean up the divots and just really cleans the fields up.
So what's is NovaCare getting used still through the season? I'm sure. But
yeah, I mean, our indoor is nice. It's
right,
but it's still not the same. We play outdoors.
They're still practicing on the field.
Yeah.
Is NovaCare get any other activity other than the Eagles? Do you use that for any other function?
It'll be used by the Eagles only, and it gets used. I mean, you figure like the guys that are rehabbing, they're out on those fields every day. So there's all these like little hiccups that come up. Like you'll just fill up the spray tank, go out to spray, and then here comes a couple players.
You got a couple guys throwing the ball.
Yeah,
around.
so now you're sitting with the solution agitating for an hour,
right?
Or so
exactly.
Just waiting to get back out there again. But no, it's all Eagles, which is great. In the summertime, when the players aren't there, if there's a soccer event going on at the stadium, they'll use our they'll use the practice fields to train.
Oh, really? Okay, so you do get a little bit of extra layer, but
not a whole lot. We've done that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's move over to the stadium. I mean, you are at the Linc, the Lincoln Financial Facility, which is a absolutely stunning stadium. What does that hold? It holds what, 70,000?
Yeah, we're like just a hair under
70,000. Yeah, and it was finished in 2003. I remember walking around.
2003 was our
opening day,
first season. Yep.
Yeah, so I remember walking around it while you were building it. I think I still have my Eagles hard hat somewhere at home. My wife won't let me wear it, unfortunately. But,
come on,
for obvious reasons.
I know.
But I do have it. I still have it. Yeah, it's a beautiful facility. So what's the day-to-day like over there? And now you've got a facility that is getting a lot of extra use. You've got temple and concerts and God knows what you have. I mean, you got something going on all the time over there.
So this past year, in this crazy time that we're in with COVID, last year was the first time that we took a field from one season into the next season.
Really?
That's the first
Congratulations.
Time. So it was.
Is that only because they canceled everything else?
Yeah, because there was nothing else going on. I mean, we had
like
all the concert tours canceled, and we had Bermuda grass in at the end of the season last year, and it came through the winter great, no issues whatsoever, and we were able to grow that in. So kind of going backwards a little bit, back when we built this in 2003, we incorporated a system called BD Grassmaster.
Yeah,
and again, back when I talked about the 90-10 mixes failing, there was a system in Europe that it's still very popular to this day, called DD Grassmaster, or there's another one called Sysgrass. And they stitch in fibers into your field after it's established. And then, once the grass wears thin, you don't have these blowouts, and then the players can still play. It's still a safe, playable surface. However, we get through 03 was very successful. You can't reside. So the only way to get your field back is to grind it down, essentially, is to take like a ½ inch off and then seed it. So getting bluegrass reestablished is difficult. So you're throwing in a lot of ryegrass as well.
Right.
So that's the only way to reestablish grass. Green Bay is the only system out there today that in the NFL that still utilizes the same
Yeah.
This,
So this is literally
this
plastic
system.
fibers that look like grass that were weaved into the field. And there's
So
a
I think
netting
it was-
underneath it, right?
So it was like, I think it's like 3% of the field was synthetic.
Yeah. I remember
when
taking
we-
soil samples on that and always having to pull the
It's
plastic
not
out.
easy to get a soil
No,
sample
it
out of there.
wasn't easy at
And
all.
at the lab, they got to pick out some plastic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I
So-
picked it out just because I had to.
Denver had it in when they put their stadium in, and they had good success with it. And then Pittsburgh and us, we did it at the same time.
Yeah.
So we put the system in, and again, the first year was great. Second year, you're overseeding, and you know what the summers are like down here. It can be, especially in the city.
Yeah.
It's always 5 to 10 degrees warmer than it is out in the suburbs. But so it was a challenge going in. The footing was always really good. It was just by the end of the season, we couldn't resod. So when you can't resod, you're just left with an aesthetically,
Yeah.
Again, the footing was fine, but it started to get nasty. So we were able to limp through the next 2 seasons. And then in 2008 is when we decided to pull the trigger and go with Patriot Bermuda grass for the
So
first
you pulled the
time.
whole field out.
We left the fibers in.
Oh, you did? Oh,
So,
I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
thought
we
it was
might have
pulled
been the
out.
only field in the world at that time that was synthetic fiber, DD Grassmaster, and we sprigged into it.
Oh, wow. How did
And
that
we
go?
It went well. I mean, we did it in March.
Yeah.
We sprigged into it in March, turned the heat system on. We put the growth blankets on. And, I think looking back, Patriot was a challenging grass. It would grow fast when it was hot. It would recover. It was very stoloniferous, especially with the whole sprigging process. But as you got into those later months in October, it became a challenge because the winter wear tolerance wasn't that good. And even though you would overseed it, you just couldn't keep up with it. And then in 2008, that same season was when we first resodded, late in the season, like in November.
And did
So
you
we
resod the
decided-
whole field or just the center?
Yeah, no,
You
we
did
did
the
the
whole
whole field. So we
Yeah.
laid it over top of the Bermuda grass.
You did a big roll?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We laid it on top of the Bermuda grass. And the idea is let's lay it on top, come back in the spring or after the season's over, grind off the bluegrass, resprig it, and then that was our system. So we tried that, I would say for about 2 years. And then we started this just to sod with straight Bermuda grass, thick cut Bermuda grass sod, laid on top of the plastic fibers, and that whole soil root zone system.
Yeah.
And then we got into more concerts, and we got into, Army Navy, where we have to resod out end zones and logos and things like that. So it gave us the ability to resod the middle of the field or resod end zones and things like that. So
You
you know,
resod end zones for logos
yeah,
because of just
Yeah.
to be able to get the paint out.
you really can't wash it out.
Right.
So
So if you had to
yeah.
put Army Navy in there, you've got to pull the end zones out.
and it's important for Temple too. I mean, when
course.
like Temple University, they play 6-7 games here every year. If there's an Eagles game the next day, which happens often, they're okay with us painting our Eagles logos. They understand the importance of us and our game on Sunday. However, if there's not an Eagles game the next day, we paint their logos, and they cover the cost to have that resodded. I mean, that's a big part of their game day atmosphere as well. So,
Of course.
so they enjoy that, and they enjoy seeing those logos out there as they should.
Yeah.
And so they help cover those costs for that. But to this day, our field, we still have the fibers underneath the field. I
I
think
didn't know that. I thought they were all gone.
it's, I go back and forth because, you look at it and it's not traditional. It's not, there's times where you feel like it's hurting you, but then there's times where I think it helps us. And where does it help us? It helps us when we do monster trucks. It helps us when we do
Right.
concerts.
When the
And
Rolling
because you can
Stones come into
literally,
town.
you can literally drive a truck over these fibers and they're not going to rut. And
Yeah.
I talked to other field managers around the NFL that are like, yeah, we just did monster trucks, and now we got this depression out in the field. I got to wait till after the season to fix it. Or a concert where like the high traffic area, there's like just a I wouldn't say it's noticeable, but there's a dip where they know it's there. And you keep thinking about it, you're like, wow, I don't have these same problems because of these fibers that are in the ground that are stabilizing the soil. So like I said, that's a help. There is some porosity there that's artificial, created by those fibers for rooting and, airflow and water and things like that. Unfortunately, the fields that we put in aren't in long enough to really root in the way they should, because they're just, it's where good grass comes to die.
How deep is the fiber now?
8 inch. Well, I mean, so the fiber itself, I mean, we still, whenever we take the old side off, I mean, you still see the fiber.
You do? Okay. So it's fairly shallow to the surface.
Yeah, it's about an inch. It's about 2 inches below the surface.
So what's game day like? What was your day yesterday like? When do you start on game day, and how do you relegate the the labor shifts, and what's a day like, normal day of game day?
Yeah, so I mean, look, last night was there was a 7 o'clock game, but there's pros and cons to those 1 o'clock starts and those later starts. So a day like yesterday allows us the ability to come in, mow the field early before anybody gets in, before, the TV networks start to move in. And so we bring in 3 guys, come in the morning, we mow, we get the field set up, get all the benches set up, get out of everybody's way. And then the rest of the crew, we might do some things over at NovaCare at the practice facility because nobody's over there.
Right.
So it allows us to do some things that we can't normally do. So, we'll do some things there, but then the bulk of the crew comes in at 1. And then, just to do some last minute things. Again, the team shows up at, I would say, around 4. Is when they start coming out on the field. Yeah, they'll start coming out onto the field around 3:30, 4 o'clock. So yeah, it's about 3 hours before kickoff. And then our game day staff will show up at 5. For them, it's a little bit different because they do have jobs that they have to go to work, and then they come in after work, and then they help us out. Our guys will pull the field goal nets during the game, and then post game we do our field cleanup, vacuuming, and fill divots and get ready for the next one. What
are you doing during game? Are you doing anything? You go out to the field at all?
Yeah, we're out pulling up the field goal nets. And then, we always walk the field after pregame warm-ups. We'll walk it and just check for anything. And then again at halftime. And
you have to do any tamping of divots during game?
Not usually. Good. We hope not. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Let's hope not.
So, you want to walk out there. I mean, look, it's a game of football. It's played by extremely large men who are
exactly, and that could hurt us.
And wearing cleats, so there's going to be damage and there's scuffing. But during the course of the game, we look at the footwork of the players and we make sure that there's nothing coming up. But overall, you're looking at the playability of the field.
Without putting you in a position of saying anything wrong, but what's the biggest frustration that you have as a field manager? I mean, what really irks you at the end of the day?
It's hard. It's the weather. I think anybody in this industry, I go back to the U.S. Open when we had it over at Marion, right?
Right. And it rained.
Yeah, you prep for so long.
I know.
You prep for years for that event.
And
it's wiped out by 2 or 3 days of rain. And does it irk me? I don't, not like it used to, because Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature does. I can get mad. I can, but it's you feel bad because you have a rain game and you look at the effort. Not only, that all of us put in, right? Yeah. It's like all my guys put in and all the effort that they put in, and the guys that come in here that on Lakeside, or there's a lot of people and a lot of things in motion and a lot of effort that goes into it. In one rain game, it could be wiped out. Or it could be a snow game that could, not saying it destroys your field, but that's the biggest unknown that all of us face. And we've been at this long enough to where we've experienced a lot of different things from an event standpoint, concerts, quick turnarounds. But like I said, Mother Nature's the unknown.
Quick turnarounds must be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, we've done some crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
we've done and a guy that does all of our events, this guy Frank Comiani, he likes to challenge us. I'll just put it
He
that way.
throws you a curveball every once in a while. The Rolling Stones on a Friday and the Eagles on a Sunday.
Yeah, and he's at the point now where I don't think he can throw any more curveballs at us because I think we hit them all.
Yeah, you're pretty good at that.
So, but no, I mean, like one year we did Taylor Swift on Saturday, and the roadways in front of the stage are like the most. They get the most beat up. So they're the areas that will say, hey, look, lay your drivable flooring out. We'll reside those areas. Like I'll strip them out. We can lay the floor in. We'll reside it after the show. But let's just do that instead of, trying to pick plywood up or trying to pick flooring up every night.
Yeah.
To let it breathe, because letting it breathe for 6 hours at night doesn't do a lot for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it do anything?
And then cover it back up and then drive on it for 12 more hours. So we talked, we have a great relationship with all the folks that come in for concerts, and we work with them. And again, like anything else, there's a lot of planning, but we did Taylor Swift on Saturday. It takes 24 hours to get the stage out. The stage comes out, and then we resod that roadway.
Oh no.
And then we had USA played Mexico in a soccer match that Wednesday. And then the next night, the Eagles played the Cleveland Browns in a preseason football game.
On Thursday.
Is
there a big change from soccer to football?
There is, because of the field width.
You got to paint it, right? I mean, the mark's still there. Can you get them off?
You could barely see them, but the NFL doesn't want to see them. So we do the best we can to cover them up. And it's a challenge. I mean, that's probably the biggest issue, I think, in our industry is, the stadiums that are doing multi-use.
Oh yeah,
fields,
that's the
like
biggest
soccer,
complaint.
like Soldier Field's hosting the Chicago Fire. Down in Nashville, they're playing soccer. Or what a team does is like, okay, well, we'll just put synthetic in because we know we can erase paint lines off the synthetic, but we know that injuries they trend higher on synthetic than they do natural grass. So it's like a sacrifice that you make to host these different events. And look, every stadium's dealing with their own set of issues. And I think the best thing we do is communicate as a group and
talk about it. Did Taylor hang out with you for a while?
No, she gets on her plane and jets out. And
of course she does.
She goes on to the next show.
Yeah, she's a Reading girl. You know that. She's local.
I know, but she's not.
She should have hung out with. She's probably an Eagles fan. Gotta be.
She has money to make.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. What's the progression of the change of flooring over the time you've been in this business? Has it changed much, or is it still pretty much the same flooring that they bring in when they do concerts?
So, it is. I mean, back when I started, it was Terraplas, and that was like, the go-to pedestrian floor.
Yeah.
So you can't drive forklifts on it, but this is where you walk. This is where you set the chairs up on. You can put pallet jacks on. You can drive a golf cart on it. Now, I think what we've seen over the years is this drivable systems that people use now, where they can put the flooring out. Now you can drive cranes on them. You can do whatever you want on them. For us, it's just easier. I mean, for our standpoint, for the building standpoint, for the artist and the promoter, is for us to lay out a drivable flooring system. We're fortunate. Our season is August till January.
Yeah.
So we can come in and lay a floor out in May, leave it down till August, and then you can just roll concert in, concert out without having to pick the flooring up.
Makes sense, yeah.
Like they do over at Citizens Bank Park. I mean, Mike Bookholder and his staff, they do a great job.
Right.
And like any of these baseball stadiums, but they're all doing multiple concerts during their baseball season, and that's a challenge.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's gotta be nuts.
Yeah, that's a challenge. But I think they've gotten better with the systems. I think they've gotten better with the staging systems too. Yeah. Not only flooring, but how they erect these stages. And
are they safer or better for the turf than they used to be?
Yeah,
more breathable.
Much so. Yeah, much so. There's still that white translucent.
Right.
There's been one flooring system that they integrated lights into it.
Oh, really?
Growth lights.
Grow
so you
lights.
can actually
I never knew that.
Grass under. Yeah. So there's, it's costly. It takes a lot of power to get to that point. But, I think that's kind of where it is. And
So when you pick
but
up the floor, is it like 8 inches of grass under
it's
that
not 8
roller?
inches of grass because you can spray a growth regulator first.
Oh, perfect. Of course.
So,
No sense.
yeah, so you can keep it. But I think we've seen more technologies in the resodding, which allows you to do a drivable flooring system as opposed to trying to save the grass. So I think that's kind of where we're at now, is the technology in resodding has
Like
gotten
what?
so much better.
Explain
Sod
that.
on plastic.
Okay.
Like, I think like the cut
Game on
side,
grass.
like where you can just do this lay and play sod, where you can, whether it be Mike's field over at Citizens Bank or our field here or whoever, I can call the sod farm and be like, hey, look, I need 2 truckloads. I got a game tomorrow night. Lay it out, paint it, you play on it, and it's fine.
You must have pretty close relationship with the sod guys. I mean, you've got to be getting sod
Yeah,
on
we
a
have
regular
to.
basis. Yeah. And they're growing for you, right?
Even to the point I made the guy, so one of the guys over at Tuckahoe that's in charge of our sod, our Bermuda grass sod, he grows all that in. Keith
in New
Salmon,
Jersey, they're growing the sod in that farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Keith is actually on my game day staff.
Oh,
So
really? Perfect.
Keith is I'm like, look, you're gonna work game day so you can see what this sod does after each game and see what we need
Begrudgingly,
to do.
he became a game day guy.
Yeah, he's
Hey, he gets to
a
go to
hell
the
of a
games every
worker.
come on.
Yeah, he's a heck of a worker, so he's able to see it, and we can talk about it. And this way he sees what we're looking at too. But yeah, I mean, that's been a great process, and being able to lay that field out and play on it's been great.
Yeah. Are you allowed to have people on your crew that aren't Eagles fans?
I'll plead the fifth.
Good answer. What was
No,
2018 like when you won the Super Bowl? That had to be pretty cool for you guys.
That was an awesome experience because, I mean, look, it was a great staff.
Yeah.
That we had with Doug and Howie, the chemistry, and you look back in the teams that we had under Andy, in the 2000s, early, phenomenal teams, phenomenal. But to win that Super Bowl in 2017, I just think it was great for the city. It was great for the players. It was great for the organization.
Oh yeah, the city was phenomenal.
Everybody's goal at the beginning of the year, no matter who you are and which department you're in, your goal is to make this team better to allow them to win the Super Bowl. That's where you want to be at the end of the year. And it's hard. I mean, you really appreciate what New England did.
Right.
Because you think when you do win one, you think you have it solved, right? You think you unlock the code, and like, this will be easy to do next year.
Yeah, we'll do it every year.
Do it. And it's not. I mean, look, we went through it. Seattle went through it. So many teams have gotten there, and then it's like Atlanta. Look how far they dropped.
Yeah.
But they're always. I mean, look, I shouldn't say how far they dropped, but they're still in it. But to get to that level, and you look at some of the teams and what they've done, year after year to stay at that level. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of dedication. It's a grind, physically and mentally. I can tell you that from seeing it firsthand.
Oh, I know.
Because you're playing until you're into the middle of February.
Yes. How many games did you have that season at home? Were you through the whole season? I don't remember the whole season. Were you playing at home that Super Bowl season?
We did. We went through our 12 games, or our 2 preseason games, our 8 regular season games, and then we hosted we hosted Atlanta in the divisional, and then we hosted Minnesota in the conference championship.
So you had 2 games, okay, and you got to beat Brady. But the NFC East is the only teams that beat Brady, right?
The Manning and Foles, right?
Manning and Foles, exactly. Not that I wanted to throw the Giants into the conversation by any chance, but I thought I'd have that. Hey, what's the camaraderie like between you and other teams? I mean, are you guys fairly close as teams? I mean, I know you talk to a lot of the guys at other teams on a regular basis, but is it a fairly strong camaraderie between grounds crews and other stadiums?
It is, because I mean, look, I'm biased, but I always tell people that we're probably the closest group when you look at departments in the NFL. I think the grounds, kind of, because we're, again, I'm just speaking as a field manager in the NFL. I just feel like we're on this island, right? And everybody's looking at our work. I mean, it's, you know, to have millions of eyeballs on what, like every decision you make throughout the week is going to be seen by everybody for 3 hours.
Right.
And you're going to be
criticized constantly, right?
By the announcers, by the media, by players, by, you know, I mean, look, whether it's, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, I mean, your work is out there for everybody to see. Not everybody can say that. And so, you know, we're all on this island together, and we're all trying to get better. And, you know, the grass guys, it's like, look, we know how to do this, you know, but we work together and we pick ideas off one another, whether it be tarping, like, hey, what do you think about, I have a 1/4 inch of rain coming in, you know, what do you think? I think I should tarp, not tarp.
Yeah.
What do you keep your heat system at this time of year? How much did you overseed with? Or what's your mowing heights? And everybody's in a different situation. Like Arizona and Las Vegas, they have a field that rolls in and out.
Yeah. Oh, Vegas,
you know, and everybody's like, oh, that's awesome. But you don't realize that you're taking a field that's in 100-degree weather.
Yes, exactly.
And you slide it inside a building that's now
72
controlled at 72 for 3 or 4 days, and then you're going to roll it back out to where it's 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And it sends that, especially with Bermuda grass, it sends that grass into shock.
Yeah.
And
I can imagine.
It takes 2 or 3 days from the time it comes out of the building to acclimate and recover, and then you got to put it back inside again. So, you know, and then not everybody does college. Like Miami, you know, they have a partial roof over top of their field. They don't have a lot of sunlight. So, hey, everybody's like, well, just get growth lights. Well, you don't have enough time to keep growth lights on your field.
Easy, yeah.
You have a college playing there. So everybody's different. And I think that's the hard part is, you know, but we all talk to each other. We get together every year. In
STMA, you going down this year? Down to
I don't know. Hopefully we.
Oh,
can,
you might be in the playoff series.
You might be in the playoffs.
Let's hope so.
I don't know.
Right?
Maybe Sunday we'll have another win.
Yeah, let's hope so. That won't be hard. I don't think that'll be a
exactly.
challenge at all. Although I think we did beat you once this year, didn't we?
Yes, you did. It was not our best game, but hopefully we can get.
Just so everybody understands this little rivalry here, I married into a row at Giant Stadium, and I spent 10 years going to the games. I haven't been to a game in years since then, but
so it's been so it'll be a big game for us for sure. But no,
every game is a big game in the NFL. I mean, there's so much, you know, the level of play across the industry right now is so strong, which is good. You know, there's a lot, especially the NFC East, which is not good. But
you look at, and I think everybody is. You look at the athletes themselves. I mean, you look at a quarterback who came in here last night.
Yeah.
You know, essentially signed off the street, and he made some really good throws. I mean,
it was a good game. It was a tight game.
Yeah, and it was, but it's like that level. I mean, there's so much parity around the league. Yeah. The coaching
was the word I was
is phenomenal. The coaching's great. It's, you look at that and you're just like, wow, like this guy is, they just signed him, and he comes in and he made it into a ball game, but fortunately we were able to come out on the right end of it. Yeah,
well, you guys dominated if you really look at the stats. But I mean, look at last Sunday. I mean, Detroit beats Arizona. I mean, who would have thunk? The parity is, which is good. It's good for the game, and it's good for everybody. But
I think it's good for the game. And again, hats off to the teams that are able to come out on top every year at the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And, I think it just goes to show them how special it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my friend, you will be surprised that we just talked for an hour, but I wish you the very best of luck. I'm grateful. It took me 9 months to finally get you on our podcast.
I was happy to be here.
I'd love to have you back again, and my offer still stands. We'd be happy to come down and talk a little dirt to your guys sometime this spring. And,
absolutely.
And if you do make it down the STMA, I will probably be there if they're still having such events. But I wish you the very best. I thank you very much for your support and your friendship over the years, and hopefully we can catch up very soon. And again, thanks for being on the EarthWorks podcast.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. Happy
And-
holidays.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And if you are not a subscriber to our podcast, please be a subscriber, because we'll give you some heads up as to some interesting guests like Tony Leonard from the Philadelphia Eagles. You're the first NFL person I've had on board, so we're hoping to get a couple more. But,
I'm glad.
I didn't want to do anything until I got you on here first. So I waited for a year, and now I can open up the doors. But thanks, Tony, again, and have a good one.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joel. Take care.